Hello class, this is a lecture video for chapter 7 of the textbook. In this chapter we focus on 4 topics. The first one is text wrap. Second one is how to work with layers. Third one is how to use gap tool. And the last one is how to use effects onto the objects. Our emphasis would be the first one and particularly the second one, how to use layers. So let's talk about the first topic, how to use text wrap. Text wrap is a very useful tool when we trying to work with the graph and the text together. So if you go to the supporting website for the textbook, download the artwork and resources folder, you will see one of the document. It's called text wrap, and if you open that template, this would be what you will see. In this document, we have a graph here, which I assume is a ping pong racket. It could be something else. And we have some text. Of course, those texts are filler text. If you look at it, they're not really in English. But we're just going to use those filler text as a demonstration. So now we have a graph and a text. How we put the graph into the text and how we can manage the relationship between the graph and the text. That's where we need to use the text wrap panel. I already have my text wrap panel here open, and if you can find your text wrap panel, you can go to Window and text wrap and check it. Then it will be here, and you click it, it will be open. Click it, it will be closed. So now we need it to be open. In order to use the text wrap panel, you need to select the graph first. And now if you look at the bounding box, if it is activated, then that means the graph is selected. And then if you look at the text wrap panel, you will see that we have several choices here. No text wrap, which means the text will just go behind the graph, or if you send the graph back, let's see, if we send the graph back, send it backward, then the text will go in front of the graph. And if you send it back, you can't really select it. So let's move. Yeah, it's right now already selected. So let's move it here. Steer to the middle. And you can see that's no text wrap. So the text will leave no space for the graph. It will just go across where the graph is. And then the second option is a wrap around the bounding box. This is the graph itself, but this is the bounding box. So if we choose this one, the text will just go around the bounding box, not really around this ping pong racket. It will go around this bounding box. And since right now the offset value is 0 inch, if you look at here, it's 0 inch. So the text will just be very close to the bounding box. If you want, you can increase the offset value, make the text further away from the bounding box. Another choice, you can similarly here, when this thing is linked, all the value must be the same. And if you want to make the values different, let's say if you want to leave more offset value on the top and make a smaller space as the offset value on the bottom, then you need to click and break the link That way you can make the different values on the bottom. Here is the bottom. So you can have different offset values for this object. You can also choose, now let's make it similar. You can choose text around the bounding box, both right and the left side, or just the right side. So this is the right side, and the left side there's no text. Or you can choose let the text go around the left side, and then on the right side there's no text. So those are the choices you can make when you choose wrap around the bounding box. You can also choose this one, which is wrap around object shape. Now it's wrap around object shape, and the object clearly is the ping pong racket. You can increase the value a little bit if you want. When you choose text wrap around the bounding box, the object shape, choose both right and the left sides. That's normally what we choose. Here tab, you can choose bounding box, and that's actually similar as the second one. So not most of the time when you choose text wrap around the object shape, here we normally choose detect edges. That way the text will detect the edge of this object and then just wrap around the object shape. So if you go to preview mode, you will see the text will go just around the object. It's a special type of effect that we can have. Now, okay, we can't select the object because remember the object is on the background of the text. The text is on the first, what we call the first pile, and then we needed to select the graph to use the text wrap, but we can't select it directly. Two ways we can do it. One way, we can move this around and then select it, and then you need to move this thing back. The second way is that you can select the text first, and then remember, you can go to select next object below. See, we select it again, even though it's on the back. Now once you select it, you can choose the fourth option, jump object, which means the text will just jump over the object, and there's no text on both right and left side. And the last option is that let the text jump to next column or next page. So there's only text above the object, no text below the object. It will just jump to next column. So that is how to use text wrap. One more thing about how to use text wrap is when you choose wrap around object shape, and there's one more trick that you can use when you try to use the text wrap function. Let's move this object to one column. Hold on. We are just selecting the content of the graph, not the frame of the graph. That's why it's moving to over there. Make it back. Okay. Okay, this time we're selecting the frame. So when we move it, we're moving the whole graph. Again, we've discussed this before. When you work with the graph, you need to be clear whether or not you're selecting the frame or you're just selecting the content. And that's different. We got to be clear about that. So now let's right now create a let's say we could create a star. We can create a star here. Press Shift and drag it. That way we're going to have a perfect star. Okay. Maybe too big. Drag it smaller. We're going to put the star here. And right now is no text wrap. We want to use wrap around object shape. So now if you look at it, the text actually goes around this star very closely. Again, if you want, you can increase the offset value so the text goes a little bit further away from the star. Now, there's one more option here. If you choose invert, see what will happen. There's no text around this star, but some text go inside it. That's the function of invert. Invert will let the text go within the object. And when you choose this one, the text will go within the bounding box. That doesn't make sense. So sometimes we would like to choose the text wrap around the object shape and then let it go invert. That way the text will automatically go into the object and not beyond it. So that's one more trick of the text wrap. That is the first thing, text wrap. And then let's look at the second topic, layers. We talked about layers. Let's go to the artwork and resources folder again. Here is a document layers folder. Let's open it. Now here is what you have. Since we are using layers, we need to close the text wrap and open the layers panel. Again, if you do not see it, you can go to Window, find Layers. It is here, and click it, or you can press F7 to call it out and open Layers. Now you can see we have only one layers here. Everything is on this one layer. When you open the layer panel, you will see there's an eye here. That means visibility. If there's an eye here, you can see everything on this layer. And if you click it, the eye is gone, then everything on this layer is also gone. You can't see it. If you want to see it again, get it back. And this thing means you can edit those stuff or not. And now since you see a pen, that means you can edit everything on this layer. You can move it, rescale it. And if you click here, there's a lock here, and then the pen is crossed off. That means you can't edit this stuff on this layer. It's locked. Everything on this stuff is on this layer is locked. And if you, since we're going to work on it, so we need to unlock it. Just click it, and then now we're able to edit anything on this layer. you will see there's a color box here, which color here is blue. So since the color here is blue, everything on this layer will have a blue bounding box. Look at the bounding box. The bounding box will be blue. If this color is different, let's say if we choose a orange color as the color of this layer, and then see the bounding box of everything on this layer will have a orange bounding box, and then the content will have a blue bounding box. It's interesting, so pay attention to that. Again, remember, right now we only have one layer here, and let's now put every stuff together to make a beautiful cheeseburger. We have a top bun, so let's move the top bun. We don't need to move the top bun. We can move things closer to the top bun. Let's start with the bottom bun. I think that might be a better idea. Let's start with the bottom bun, okay? And stuff on top of the bottom bun would be the cheese. So let's move the cheese on top to the bottom bun. That's exactly what we want. So we put the cheese here already. And then the next thing would be the hamburger. So let's move the hamburger down to put it on top of the cheese. Okay, we put it down as needed. Then the bacon. Okay, and then the lettuce. Okay, we put the lettuce here. Notice that actually we want the lettuce to be on top of the bacon. However, actually right now the lettuce is below the bacon. How can we move it up? They are in the same layer, but they are on different piles. So we need to move the lettuce on top of the bacon. Right now the lettuce is still selected, so we go to Object, Arrange, bring it to front. So we bring the lettuce to the front. But the bacon is all covered, so let's move the lettuce a little bit and show some of the bacons. That's what we need. And then we have the tomato. Let's move the tomato on top of the lettuce. We have the same thing, so we need to bring the tomato on to the front or on top of lettuce. Okay. And then let's put the top bun on top of the tomato. It's weird again because the top bun is not really on top, so let's bring it on top or bring it to front. Now we have a wonderful cheeseburger. Remember, you can select everything and press Command G, group it, and that way the cheeseburger will become one stuff, and you can move it anywhere. You don't need to worry about it that it will be disassembled. And if you don't like it, Shift Command G, and then it will be ungrouped. That way you can still move part of this cheeseburger. So the cheeseburger can be done on one layer. Right now again it's still on the same layer, but with the bring to front or bring to the back function. Another function of making the layers, making the cheeseburger is to create different layers. And remember, creating layers is a very important function in design. So let's see how we can create the layers. First of all, let's put a text frame here. We call it Texas cheese. Texas cheese break. We like this Texas cheese break. Put it here, and we can double click this layer, name it text. For all the other things, let's leave it as default for now. So this is, we still only have one layer so far. Everything is on this layer, but let's create how many pieces do we have? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 pieces. Top bun, tomato, lettuce, bacon, hamburger, cheese, and the bottom bun. So let's create 7 new layers. You can simply click here, create a layer. Right now it's called layer 2. Double click it and give it a name. Let's call it a bottom bun. Or you can click the menu, new layers, then it will give you a dialog box. So let's call this layer cheese. Or you can press option and then click here. This is a shortcut key of getting this new layer dialog box out. Cheese, we need hamburger. And then option, click again. Bacon, we need a bacon. Layer, option, click again. Letters, option, tomato, option, top bun. So we have 7 more layers right now, and let's move those stuff to each layer. Select the top bun. Right now it's still, everything again is still on the text layer, because you see when you select the top bun here, it is the text layer is highlighted, and if you make the text layer invisible, everything is invisible, because again, even though we created new layers, but everything so far is still on the text layer. And select the top bun, and then put your cursor here, click it, move it to top bun. Now you see the bounding box for the top bun has been changed into dark green, and dark green is the color for the top bun. So right now top bun has already been moved to the layer of top bun. So if you click the eye here, top bun is gone. And then if you get it back, you can still see it. If you had everything on the text layer, everything except the top bun is gone, but the top bun is still over there, because the text bun right now is not on the layer of text. We just move it to the layer of top bun. Use the same method, we can move tomato to the layer of tomato. Again, when you want to move something to a different layer, you have to select that thing first. So we select the tomato and then click here, move it to tomato, the layer of tomato. And now it's see the bounding box for the tomato has been changed to I think it's green, and because the green is the tomato layer, color of the tomato layer. If you hide it, tomato is gone. Do the same thing to letters. See, the bounding box has changed again. Do the same thing to bacon. Notice the bounding box. Do the same thing. Oh, okay. Do the same thing to hamburger. Notice the bounding box. Cheese. And now it's top bone. Bottom bone, I'm sorry. Notice the bounding box. So now we have moved everything to its own layer. How do you tell it's on its own layer? You can check by clicking off the eyes. So let's say if we click this eye, then everything on the hamburger layer should be gone. What is actually on the hamburger layer? Exactly this hamburger. So that means if we click this eye, only this thing should be gone. Everything else should still be here. Let's click it. Exactly, the hamburger is gone. Everything else is still there. Let's double check with, let's say, letters. When we click this one, only the letters should be gone. Exactly, that's what it happens. So now we will put everything on its own layer, and we can still move everything back as a hamburger. Let's put the cheese here, and then next would be bacon, and the next thing would be actually not bacon. The things on top of the cheese is actually the hamburger. So we need to move the hamburger here. And then the cheese. Notice that the cheese and the hamburger are actually in the red order, which means the cheese is on top of the hamburger and the hamburger is on top of the cheese. I mean, the bacon is on top of the hamburger, and the hamburger is on top of the cheese. That is because the order here is right. So you have a bottom bone, cheese, hamburger, and bacon. Let's say if you move the bacon, if you select the bacon layer and move it down to here, notice the cheese goes to the bottom. That's not what we want, so let's move the bacon back to on top of the hamburger. Next thing would be letters. And then tomato. And then top bone. Okay, now we have the beautiful hamburger again. Let's do one more game with this layer function. Now notice that everything, even though looks like they're still in the same layer, but they are actually not. Everything is on its own layer. For instance, if we hide things on this layer, then the top bone will be gone. If we hide the bacon, and everything on the layer of bacon will be gone. So now let's select the top bottom bone. You will see it's really a mess here. And since we have a lot of stuff here, how did you know you selected the bottom bone, or did you select the hamburger, or did you select the bacon? It will be very difficult. But with the layer function, we can actually do it easily. Let's see if we want to select the bottom bone. We just lock all the other layers except bottom bone. And now put your cursor here. Anything you select, you can only select the bottom bone in this case because everything else has been locked. So let's select the bottom bone and active the text wrap function. Give it a text wrap. Wrap around object shape. Now we have some text wrap here. Leave some space on the bottom here. And you see the text is not shown because the text frame is not big enough to contain all the text. So we need to make it larger. But now you can't do it right now because it's not on this layer. We're now actually working on the layer of the bottom bone. So if we want to make the text frame larger, we need to go back to the text layer. And you can't edit it because it's locked. So let's lock the bottom bone and unlock the text layer, and then you can edit it right now. Give it a larger space. Okay, I think this looks great. So you may recall that the text is actually on the text layer and the bottom bone is actually on the bottom bone layer. They are on the different layers. However, even though they are on different layers, when you give a text wrap function to the bottom bone, it will still influence the text. And that's something you may want to remember. So let's lock the text layer, go back to the bottom bone layer, double click it, and call out the dialog box of this layer. Notice that there's a surprise text wrap when layer is hidden. So let's do not check it right now. We leave it as a default and then see if we had we say okay, then let's hide this bottom bone. You will notice that even though the bottom bone is hidden, the text wrap function is still here. However, if you call out this dialog box and check this surprise text wrap when layer is hidden, in that case, if the layer is hidden, if we had the bottom bone layer, and then the text wrap is gone because we surprise it. So that's what this checkbox make. And if you get it back, the text wrap function is still here. Had it, text wrap function is gone. So that's the last thing that you may want to remember about the layer function. Again, layer function is very important in InDesign, so you really want to make sure that you understand it. The third thing in this chapter is the gap tool. Gap tool is a very important tool when you work with several graphs. So let's see if we can, let's unlock everything here. See if we can select everything. We can't. But yes, we select everything actually, and see if we can move them all. We can still move them all, even though they are on different layers. So that's something interesting to know. And let's move them over here. Leave some space, and then let's have some photos here. Those are all big pictures. Make it smaller. And notice I only make the frame smaller, so out of it does it. Yeah, let's check this and then fill the frame proportionately, which means we're going to make the we're making the content to fit the frame proportionately. And then let's work on the second photo here. Fit proportionately. Check auto fit so that the content in the frame will be resized at the same time. If you check that and you rescale the frame, it will be reframed at the same time. So let's put those the photo. Let's see, we're gonna put this photo here, and this photo here, and this photo is still big. Let's make it even smaller. Put it here. The gap function is that when you have several photos, the gap function will allow you to work on at least 2 photos at the same time. So if we click the gap tool and put it here, see, if you move and press your mouse and move it, you will see it will keep the gap. In this situation, it will keep the gap between those 2 graphs the same and rescale those 2 photos at the same time. And here, in this case, it still keeps the gaps. This is the gap. So the gap tool basically keeps the gap between the photos as exactly the same, and it rescale 2 photos at the same time. That's what the gap tool does. Here it does the same thing. See, the gap between the frames remains the same, but both photos are rescaled at the same time. You can also do it here. And when you use the gap tool, you can also press Option. Let's see, if we press Option and then use the gap tool, you see what will happen here. It will actually move all the photos at the same time, and with the gaps remain the same. So when you press Option, use the gap tool, that's what is going to happen. You can also press Command and use the gap tool. Instead of remaining the gap as the same, this way it will actually change the gap of the photos. it will make it further or make it closer. So you can, when you use the gap tool, you can press Command key and Option key. That's the third topic. You can use a gap. And then the last topic for today is that when you work with the objects, those kind of objects or the photographs, you can give them effects. So let's select this one. The basic effects is that you can give it a drop shadow, and you can make it give it a opacity, so that let's say right now is 100%. You can give it a 10%, and so that if you put some text here, and people can read the text. If you use 100 opacity and you put some text here, nobody can read it. And of course, there are other effects. And if you click here, you will see their inner shadow, out glow. You can try the stain, basic feather, all the other effects. And you can not only use effects to the photos, graphs. You can also apply the effects to the text frames and text. So that will be something that you may want to explore. Those are the 4 things that have been covered in Chapter 7. Again, text wrap, layers, gap tool, and the effects. Hopefully that you guys will enjoy it. Thank you very much. Bye bye.